The employment contract as we've known it is broken. This is a permanent change in the workplace. The workplace model has changed and it's never going back. And if you don't know what to do, it's going to be a miserable, hard road. Don't lose hope. There is a next step.
Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Salem Speakers Podcast. Today's conversation is especially relevant right now because we're living in a time where corporate stability isn't what it used to be. Layoffs are happening, roles are changing, and a lot of highly skilled professionals are finding themselves asking, what now? So today, I'm joined by someone who has been preparing for this shift for over 2 decades. Spunk Burke is the author of The Gig Solution and helps business professionals transition out of traditional employment and into what he calls solution vending, essentially getting paid for your expertise on your terms. Spunk, thank you so much for being on the Salem Speakers Podcast today. I'm excited to have you here.
Well, it's nice to be here, Jacob. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, let's kick things off with kind of a softball question, if you will. When did you first realize that the traditional career path was starting to break down?
Well, actually, I guess to be honest, it was probably more like in the 70s when I first started out in contract staffing. We represented engineers first, and they were experiencing a little upheaval in the market at that time, and many of them were getting involved in contract staffing, in temporary help, in project work. And from there, I went into programming, computer programming. And these people also were going through some upheaval, still a lot of demand, but not everybody wanted to be a fit in the box, if you will. And they started doing project work. And from there, I've done work with the trades. I've been in contract staffing my whole life. And what I recognize is the last discipline of labor, i.e. the business professional, is the only one who has not been represented by the staffing industry. And so I looked at them particularly because of the state that they're in right now. And you took the words out of my mouth. What's happened is the employment contract as we've known it is broken. There is no loyalty. There is no longevity. There is no burden. What's happening is today's companies are so profit-oriented, so direct towards producing a good bottom line that they have found ways to reduce their costs. And the biggest cost of all, of course, is labor. And so with the advent of AI, young people coming up the ranks, willing to work for less, as I said, AI and mergers and acquisitions, all kinds of conditions have coalesced into an environment where the less is more. The less headcount we've got, the more we're going to profit and move forward. And so caught in the middle of that is the business professional, the middle manager, the person who's been working at a functional level for 5, 10, 15, 25 years, and all of a sudden finds himself on the street unceremoniously. Thank you for your help, Jacob. You did a great job. We like you a lot, but there's the door.
Yeah.
And, that's a tough pill to swallow when you've grown up in this environment of a corporate world where you thought you had a home for life, or at least every 10 years. And so these people, Jacob, I know, they're hitting the street and, they're not really aware of these changes and how it impacts their job search.
Yeah.
And they find in very short order, after polishing up their resume like they were told to do for years and applying with abandon, going to the job boards, and even fairly optimistic when they're first let go. It's hey, I don't need that job anyway. I'll find something better.
Yeah.
6 weeks later, it's a different story. 6 weeks later, they realize that, hey, this is not going to be fast. As a matter of fact, I've sent out 135 resumes. I've only had 2 calls, and they didn't even result in an invite to an interview. This market has changed, and I don't know how to deal with it. I don't know what to do next. And that's what we address. We take a look at how that paradigm is shifted, and people are not hiring these individuals on a conventional basis. What can they do to land on their feet, move forward, and and protect their career.
You're talking the smart people, right? Why do you think so many smart, capable professionals, even today, as I stand here and have this conversation with you today, are still relying on job security, even when the writing is on the wall that not only are things changing, but as you have already said, it's changed over the last 2 decades. Why do you think so many people are stuck in the rat race, if you will?
Well, because it hasn't been bad. I mean, over the last 30, 40 years, it's been a good gig, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
There's you do a good job. You're reliable. You're learning. You're moving up the ranks. You've got security. You've got a paycheck every week. You've got benefits. I know these people. I identify with the company. They're part of my identity. I'm not looking. And if I am looking, I'm looking for conventional employment or waiting for the phone to ring and someone inviting me to make a move.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been a stressful situation until recently. And now savvy business professionals who are at all tuned in to what's happening realize that, the axe is going to fall at some point. Yeah. And it may not fall on everyone, but I know that I'm not immune. So maybe I should start thinking about alternative methods of being successful, of being secure, and having financial security.
Yeah, I mean, we essentially have all the warning signs now. They're out there. You see them, right? The media, the news. I almost think it's, big business that's bringing the AI scare to the world, because AI is kind of the big topic of the hour. I actually am thinking back as we're having this conversation to 2009, right? Where we had, a big recession of my lifetime, right? I'm a little bit on the younger side, so 35 years old at the recording of this. But in 2009, I was working in a manufacturing plant, and I've never been let go so fast in my life of something that I thought was a long-term play. I'd already worked through, I was in the repair, I was in maintenance, I was in sales, I was in technical support, I was in customer service. I'd worked in so many departments, yet when things shifted fast, and I was let go, and I was a long gone memory that the business never thinks about. And so in today's age, right, as we're recording this, do you know of any off the top of your head warning signs, right? The warning signs are there. We're talking about them. But what are some warning signs that these business professionals should be thinking about now, or be looking for now, as their maybe red flag, if you will, that they need to start thinking differently?
Well, I might be alone in this thinking. One of the most immediate warning signs started probably a decade ago, maybe 2 decades ago, was the propensity for management to start outsourcing aspects of their business.
That's right.
Whether it was to Asia or China or wherever it was. And now it's even local. Okay. We just outsource it. Okay. Which means that there's a new mentality. And that mentality is, instead of doing it, why don't we buy it? All right. Let's just divulge ourselves of all this effort if we can buy it for cheaper and for better.
That's right.
And so that's probably the biggest factor. There are other factors that there seems to be an increase in mergers and acquisitions. Anything that's disruptive is going to make people at risk in terms of conventional employment continuing. And so as these factors come about, not only are the employees affected, but their managers are affected.
That's right.
The managers are starting to think about, how can I be more profitable? What can I outsource? How can I use AI to be able to do the work that I'm currently paying these people to do? And so there's a lot of forces in play right now that are not going to change. It's not like a normal recession that we'll come out of this in another 9 months or 2 years. This is a permanent change in the workplace. The workplace model has changed, and it's never going back. And I personally think it's a positive change, because what it allows people to do is gain more control. It seems like immediately when they're let go, they've lost control.
Yeah.
What's happened? I've lost my job. I've lost my identity. I've lost my income. It's a very unsettling situation until they get their feet back on the ground with a strategy that promises security, control. And these are things that most people aspire for. And so what we do is we push them into entrepreneurial thinking, as opposed to, I'm a peg in the hole. I'm thinking like an entrepreneur.
That's right.
I'm taking care of aspects that were taken care of for me in the past, but I have more control how they're done. Whether it's finance or marketing or sales or how much work I want, how little work I want. So they're gaining more control. That's a big factor of the gig solution.
Well, I love the segue there of what you said, because that's where I'm headed. You are the author of The Gig Solution. You wrote the book, you recorded the course, you literally owned the domain, thegigsolution.com. So let's take a little bit of time to tell me a little bit about what is the gig solution, and maybe even going a little step further, as I did some due diligence heading into this concept of solution vending. All right, I'd love to know from you, what is the gig solution and what is solution vending?
Well, I'm glad you asked those questions because they're paramount to why this is going to work. But we don't expect people to be able to just say, no problem, I'm going to become a gig worker, I'm going to become a contractor, I'm going to become a solution vendor. Okay, there's some paths that you have to go down in order to get there. And the first thing that we do, Jacob, is we help the individual determine whether or not they've got the mentality, the attitude, the aptitude to become a contractor. Or maybe you have to stay in the conventional employment world. You might have to take less money. It might take you a while to find the position, but that's probably where you belong. And then we sort them out, so we find people who've got what we think it takes. And we know it's a formula. And the next thing we do is put them through a rigorous workbook session in terms of being able to extract from their expertise what it is that they can do and package and deliver with reliability and confidence. And that's not a walk in the park for most people. It requires some real coaching, all right, to determine, what do I want to do on my first project? Okay. And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about projects. And from there, we go to all the steps of any business in that, okay, how do I package it in terms that I can bring to the market so that it's recognized as a solution, not my resume, not my experience, but solution. And how do I determine who needs that solution? Who's likely to have that problem? We have a whole module on how to prospect, how to gather G2, how to identify the person who's got the exact problem that you've got the solution for. And guess what? They're willing to pay it.
That's right.
They don't have to bring you on board and check you out and interview you and interview 100 other people and give you this big package loaded with benefits and burden. They can buy the solution delivered. That if they like what they get, they pay. If they don't like, they can take a different stance. But basically, we're teaching that person how to package the deliverable in such a fashion that it's worth more than if they were an employee. It's worth more than their salary and burden. We teach them how to price that. We teach them how to present the solution. We teach them how to execute it, how to develop the project plan. All the aspects of, it's almost like a franchise, but it's not. But it would be all the aspects of setting yourself up in business. Not tremendously cumbersome. All right. I mean, by all rights, people who follow this system of the gig solution are very possibly on their first assignment, making premium fees for anywhere between 8 and 10 weeks.
That's awesome. So can you educate me? How does this differentiate, or how is this different from, let's say, consulting or freelancing, or is it too much different?
Well, that's a good question, because there are a lot of unconventional titles these days. There's interim, there's fractional, there's shared, there's consulting, and they're all different. They all have different nuances. Interim is basically where this business professional goes in and he sits in the seat until a permanent hire comes along. That's interim. Fractional means that they basically run the function of business on a limited basis because they're not needed on a full-time basis yet as the business grows. Fabulous model that works for both business and people. Consultants come in and advise. They take a stock of the situation and they provide counsel and advice. A contractor comes in with a plan and he actually delivers. He executes and delivers. So those are the principal differentiations.
And obviously, you would say, just based off of the information I know about you, that you believe this is more sustainable than obviously any traditional employment?
Well, at this point, certainly. There's no
Yeah.
guarantee that if you happen to, if you look at the statistics in terms of how long it takes to find a job, it could take 45, 50 weeks. All right. And what's particularly sad about that is that the statistics of how long that job is going to last you is almost the same amount of time. So if you want to go through this every other job, there's nothing more sustainable than putting together a marketing strategy that's systematic, that's always working while you're working, so that you've got project after project after project. And you want to scale, you can turn it up a bit more and find more people like yourself.
I want to kind of tee up my next question, because you launched the gig solution a couple of years back, didn't you?
That's right. In 2017, I wrote it.
So you know a thing or two because you've seen a thing or two. You've been teaching this for a while. For someone that's spent 10, 15, 20 years in a job, this is a massive shift for them. Even hearing it could be a massive shift for them, especially if they're watching us on YouTube or listening to this as a podcast or seeing it on some social media platform. It's a massive mindset shift, as well as it could change their entire life. And so from everyone that you've seen, and you've helped work through this since 2017, what would you say the biggest mindset change that they have had to make in order to kind of change their life or change the trajectory of their life? What's the biggest mindset change they've had to make?
Well, I don't want to mislead you, Jacob. The truth of the matter is I wrote that book back in 2017 because I saw it happening. I saw it coming, but I didn't really promote the book. And frankly, I didn't develop the business. I thought it would run off the shelves. I didn't pay attention to it until about a year ago.
Okay.
And that's when I started working with my people in terms of developing an infrastructure, a course, a strategy, and really bringing it to market. And frankly, we're at the point right now where we are ready to launch. If someone needs help tomorrow, we can help them. But heretofore, what we've done is spent all our time in terms of developing a system that enables this paradigm shift. And you know what? It's not as huge as it sounds, because all that business professional has to do is look in other departments. And they've been using contractors for years. The engineering department, the IT department, the legal department. Really, it's the executive suite. And I'm not talking about C-level, but it's the executive suite that's been principally ignored by the contract staffing industry. But now it's going to come on strong, because this is the only way to get work done. You don't go out and post an ad and interview people and go through the whole process of presenting them with a permanent job, okay, which is a joke, all right? They're going to say, let's buy this. Yeah. And so for the time being, Jacob, it's going to be incumbent upon the individual to basically vend, okay, to actually take that package and find a place where it's likely to be needed and go and initiate the transaction. That's going to change. But in the meantime, we are equipped and enabled to be able to do it on our own.
That's awesome. So your book, your course, your information can help somebody literally go from, man, AI just replaced me, to you can actually help them pull out, hey, this might be your area of expertise. This is what the industry, can use that expertise for. This is how you can package it, and this is how you can go out, prospect, and start getting paid for it.
That's right. And I don't think we can diminish the emotional position this has put these people in. Yeah. That again have worked for 30 years within a number of corporations, and they have their whole life tied up, their retirement, everything tied up with this employment. Yeah. And when you get that slip, it really seems like betrayal. Yeah. And we understand that. We understand how that can really create some emotion. The ego is affected, the confidence is affected, your family's affected, everybody's affected. And if you don't know what to do, if you have to continue to rely on the old tactics of submitting resumes and waiting for the phone to ring, it's going to be a miserable, hard road that doesn't need to happen. And I'm sort of fortified in that it's not going to take long for people to recognize, hey, maybe there's a better way. And when they hear that there's a path and a map, watch out.
So what's
I'm not going to say.
So what's that first step, right? So you're mentioning there's a path, right? If we could just as a podcast as to give away the information. So let's talk for the human that right now is struggling with this right now, present day. They're ready to take that next step. Maybe they're still employed, maybe it's still gainfully employed, but they know that it's coming and they want to start preparing. What's that first step that somebody could take right now so they can start heading in the direction to producing their own income, their own security, so they don't need to be, chained, if you will, to corporate America?
Well, as I said earlier, it's the assessment, okay? And they're primed to try and make this assessment work. And that is basically get rid of any negativity about whether or not they can do this on their own and really look with 25 different hard questions where they're ranking themselves at whether or not they've got what it takes. Disingenuous of me to lead someone down this path if they don't have what it takes. And what I mean by what it takes is being able to extract that expertise and being able to package it, whether they have the mentality to be able to operate, on their own. These things are real and they could affect their success as a contractor. That's the first assessment, if you will. What do we call it? We call it the solution vending assessment, or SVVA. I'm sorry, I don't remember, but that's the first step we take. And that's free.
Yeah.
That's free. So that's what we do. We say, come on, let's see if this is right for you. Take the assessment. We'll figure out what the next step is. And the next step basically is looking at what their expertise might be that would be most favorable to bring to the market.
So to clarify that and just make it black and white, crystal clear for those listening, watching around the world, wherever that is, their next step really should be go to thegigsolution.com. And I actually have it pulled up on my screen where somebody can actually take the assessment. You have a big orange button for take the assessment. And that's what they should be doing, is taking an assessment, getting a little feedback to themselves, and then you're able to help guide them further from that decision. Is that correct?
That's right. The first step of that guidance is this workbook that we've created to help them extract from their experience what it is they're going to package and vend, what the solution is. And that requires some handholding. We've got this workbook that does a wonderful job of doing that. And if they can't do it with a workbook, we're available for consultation. Incidentally, anybody who gets involved in our coaching program is in it until they find their first project. It's not one of these, you got 24 hours and the clock is ticking. Also, just for edification, is that any purchase that they make for any of the products or services that we have is applied to the next level that they might want to go to. And that's really what happens, is that people look at this and they think, oh, I can figure this thing out. And within short order, they say, can you help me? Or you want it done for me? And there's no do it for me out there yet, but there's a lot of support in terms of getting them out there and getting them back to work as quickly as possible.
Well, Spunk, I'm so glad that you were able to join me on the Salem Speakers Podcast today. Is there any one thing, if you could leave our listeners with one thing today, is there one thing you would like to leave them with that maybe we didn't cover, or maybe you just want to repeat?
I would say clearly the one thing is that don't give up hope.
Yeah.
All right. There is a solution to your situation. And I know, Jacob, that most people listening to this podcast, particularly if they're one of the million in the age group from 45 to 60 that have been making professional salaries, have lived a lifestyle relative to those salaries, who have some fears about what might happen next month or next year, or maybe have a pink slip. Okay. I know how difficult it's going to be in terms of dealing with that. And I want to say, don't lose hope. There is a next step.
That's right.
You can continue down the path of applying, but you're going to be struck with reality that it's a long haul and it's more of the same. And so I would say, look into this possibility. And the more you look at it, my prediction is you're going to be excited about a new path, a new career path.
Yeah. Well, Spunk, I appreciate you so much for coming on, because this is that conversation that so many people need to hear right now. There are a ton of capable, highly capable people with real skills, real experience, who are relying on systems that, as we've said, are no longer reliable. And so for everyone listening, if you've ever felt like you're capable of more, if you know you have experience that could help businesses, organizations, or people, be sure to visit thegigsolution.com, because I believe that Spunk can help you. And for those of you who are already speakers out in the world and you're simply looking for more speaking opportunities, I would love to have you join us at Salem Speakers. As always, it's been awesome to be with you here today. Thank you for listening to the Salem Speakers Podcast.
Jacob, all the best.